This is the FRC Roundtable, coming to you all the way from Minnesota. Your host team 2052 KnightKrawler presents this weekly FRC gathering where FIRST Robotics competition teams take cooperation off the field. Share your knowledge, give and get advice, solve a challenge, or celebrate what makes your team special. 3, 2, 1, go!
Welcome, everyone, to the FRC Roundtable. My name is Scott Davis. I'm a mentor with Team 2052 KnightKrawler.
And I'm Vivian. I'm a 10th grader on the Programming and Impact team for Team 2052. We would like to welcome you to tonight's FRC Roundtable. Some housekeeping notes before we start is that the FRC Roundtable is recorded for YouTube and Spotify. You must be 13 years or older to participate in the live call. If you're comfortable, please use your camera while speaking. The Roundtable is no longer exclusive to just Minnesota teams. Mentors and students from all FRC teams are welcome to join us. For more information, including our privacy policy, visit the team2052.com Roundtable website. And with that, we have a new segment to start off the show with this season called What's on the Wiki. Tonight's wiki highlight is Girl Scouts and what our team does during week 0 and just in general for Girl Scouts. So please check out our website for more information.
And we've got some resources on that wiki, including some different code resources for that we can share. We've got our an example of one of our slideshows on our wiki, and that's one of our older ones. So we'll be going ahead and jumping in right now. Vivian, do you want to go ahead and give a little more background?
Yeah. So as I said, I'm Vivian. I've been on KnightKrawler for 2 years now. I'm a sophomore, and I'm on the programming team, though I haven't been doing a lot of programming this year because I've been working really hard on our impact essay and our executive summaries. And beyond just robotics, I'm also in Girl Scouts. And I've been in Girl Scouts for a while now, since kindergarten, I'm pretty sure, since I was a daisy. And I've also been caddying or like being a counselor at summer camps for Girl Scouts. And I do that almost every summer. So, yeah.
And I'm Michelle. I'm one of the Team 2052 mentors. This is my 6th year mentoring with the team. I work with our More Than Robots /media, but I also have been working with our Girl Scout program since I became associated with the team. I was a Girl Scout troop leader from the time my daughter was in 1st grade till she graduated, and I actually helped plan and work at the summer day camp that Vivian is a caddy at. And so we're just going to go through and talk about Girl Scouts and robotics because there's a very nice match with this program with FIRST Robotics and Girl Scouts. And let's see here. All right. So this is what we're going to be covering. Tonight we'll talk about Girl Scout considerations because the Girl Scout program does have a really nice robotics badge suite for each grade level. We're going to talk about what the badge requirements are and what it looks like in action for a FIRST Robotics team. And you may ask, besides this just being a great outreach program, why would you be interested in this? Some of the things from the National State of Girls and Women in STEM report for 2025 that Girl Scouts USA uses to help with their background when they're setting programming includes that stereotypes are about interest in engineering and computer science are formed as early as age 6 in girls. And girls often have limited exposure to relatable women STEM role models.
Yeah, and interactions with relatable role models can shift perspective or perceptions of who participates in STEM. And women are almost half of the workforce, but only 35% of the STEM workforce. And Latina, Black, and Native American women represent less than 10% of the overall STEM workforce. So it's really important for young girls especially to get experience with women mostly who are like participate in STEM or work in STEM related fields. And I know for me, it's super cool to see a lot of my mentors who are female, especially like Ashley at for our week 1 competition when she went on the field and talked about Medtronic and her job. I was like, wow, that's my mentor. That's super cool. And I think it's definitely persuaded me to want to work in STEM in the future and continue down this path. So it's definitely very important that young people have experience with this.
And as we get a little further into that, wrong direction. We'll talk a little more about some of the whys and hows on this too. So here's just some different photos from over the years. We've been actually doing a robotics program with Girl Scouts since around COVID. We had a very motivated, also former Girl Scout student with our media team and business and public relations who really drove the start of this program about 6 years ago now. So during COVID, we were doing meet and greets with the students outside with some organized programming. We were doing online virtual robotics badge programming with our council. Some of you who have attended Week 0 may have seen our Girl Scouts in the pits. We do pit tours with them. Every year we host at least one troop to complete the prototyping badge during Week 0. You can see just what that looks like, with students working with Lego to do their prototyping and bring it to life.
And yeah, there are a lot of different levels for Girl Scouts. It's all just based on age. The Daisies are the youngest. Those are kindergartners and first graders. Brownies are second and third graders. Juniors are fourth and fifth graders. Cadets are sixth and eighth graders. Seniors are ninth and 10th graders. That's what I am. And next year I'll be an ambassador, which is 11th and 12th graders. And from my experience as like a camp counselor, a lot of the like younger girls tend to be more like energetic. So you have to have more of a like restraint on them, especially because those are likely the girls who are going to be doing these kinds of badges with you. And yeah, so definitely take the age into consideration when you are leading badges and doing that kind of thing.
And they do have different levels of what's involved with each badge as you go through. And so the other piece of this is every girl, a Girl Scout, like Vivian stated, she started as a Daisy, which is a much younger group. And they will when they move to the next level, they do something called bridging. So they bridge from Daisy to Brownies. And then you'll see a lot of these students come back. So the group of juniors we just worked with at Week 0 had actually done the badges with us as Brownies. So they've already done these badges before, but every level and every grade or every group they move into creates more challenges. The badges change a little bit. And so you may have what I like to call repeat customers coming back for more badge work with you, and then you get to create these relationships with these students over time. So as we're talking about Girl Scouts, there's a couple things that are really important to keep in mind. We're going to be focusing on Girl Scouts of America. There is a much larger worldwide organization that GSA falls into. And so depending on which country you're in, if you're watching this from a different country that is also involved with FIRST Robotics, you'd want to look at your Girl Guide or whatever they're called within your country and your region's requirements. Within the US, there are 111 local councils that cover the larger designated geographic areas. We have several councils within Minnesota, so depending on which region of the state you're in, you may not be in the same as a team from another geographic area. Within those councils are service units, and within those service units, you'll have your troops that you're interfacing directly with. The reason I want to bring this up is because as you're looking at building out a program, this may influence who and how you contact. So we've actually worked with the local council during COVID to do virtual badge programming. We've also what I do is I communicate out to the service unit that I belonged to as a troop leader, and I am still on their Facebook group. I will communicate out to the service unit to ask if there are troops interested to actually get to that troop level. So keep that in mind, that understanding how Girl Scouts is organized can be very helpful for where you interface and make those connections. And if you don't know who to talk to, you can go to your local council, and that's a good place to start because they'll be able to help you get into touch with the right people in your area. I'm just gonna here pop programming. Oh, when I'm talking about programming right now, I'm talking about the Girl Scout program. Oops, and I'm going backwards. I'm talking about the programming that Girl Scouts actually has set in place for their badge requirements. All right. So let's take a look at the guidelines. So there's a couple things when we're looking at hosting Girl Scouts and working with them. There are Girl Scout of America chaperone rules. So an important piece will be that you'll probably have at least several adults that are associated with the troop attending, and maybe extra parents. That can be that's something to keep in mind, especially for the younger students. A lot of them end up staying, and we've had that can create some issues. It's great that they want to be involved and see what's going on. It can create issues because you want these young ladies to be doing the work on their badge program. And so for us, just making sure that they understand the students that with FIRST Robotics will be facilitating the program can be helpful, and that they'll be assisting the students so that the parents aren't hovering. But then it also can create some issues because you also want to make sure that you have a space for them to gather and talk that isn't interrupting the programming that or the delivery of the session with the students that you're offering. There'll be rules for photography, and then the badge requirements themselves for each level that you need to take into consideration. Oh, sorry. All right. One thing I want to mention is the photo policy with working with Girl Scouts. We do have to have a photo release for each student stating that the permission for your robotics team to use those photos in a social media display. Or any future use on it. This is based on Girl Scouts of America rules and guidelines. If you need examples of that, they've got different forms that you can use as a guide for a photo release. We usually plan ahead and send those forms to the troops. And then I have found also that 9 times out of 10, parents forget to actually be proactive on bringing those in. When I send them ahead to the troop leader to disperse. So a lot of times we just end up having a stack of blank photo releases ready for the parents to sign when they do drop off for the programming that we're offering or the session that we're offering. All right.
For badges, it can get a little bit confusing. There's different like series or categories for each badge. Like I remember doing marketing, or for this case, robotics badges, and each level will have 3 badges that they can do. So like there'll be 3 different ones that brownies can do, 3 for daisies, 3 for juniors, etc. And usually there's a programming, a designing, and a showcasing, or some sort of those 3 are mostly what they're going to be. And yeah, it'll all mostly be the same thing for each one. But as you deal with older and older Girl Scouts, you'll want to adapt the programs a bit more and change things. Like I was saying, like a lot of the younger girls won't understand as much about like programming and that kind of thing. So, and those badges will definitely be shorter for the younger girls.
Yep. So right now I'm going to just slide on over another screen and let's take a look at what these look like. So this is the junior level that we just did with our group of students that came through week 0. So we did the badge 2 designing, and so this is our prototyping badge within the series for juniors. And then they'll always have steps that are involved and a purpose or goal for it. And then they will go through, and what you'll find are different themes. So with the younger ones, it may be design a robot that will solve a environmental problem or something like that. So it really does pay to get your hands on these, because then they're going to go through what the requirements are for that particular grade level badge. Generally, there's some sort of expertise and prototyping that's involved, and then getting the feedback on it. So that's an example of what that looks like. So it's really helpful to know what that badge requirement is for that grade level that you're working with for those students. Tasks to earn the badges are contained in those, like what I just showed you for each level. The packets are $6, and then it contains all the different badge pieces. So that $6 covers all the 3 badges within the robotics suite of badges. You can purchase those online at Girl Scouts of America. Troop leaders also often will buy the packets for the badges that they want to provide and do with their students. So they may already have these available and be willing to share this with you as you're planning your event. So we just have every grade level that we have in our Girl Scout resources for outreach. Just it's been helpful to have it. They're not that expensive. It's good to know these, especially if you're working with a troop that you may have some problems connecting with. It's good to have them ahead of time and just know what they're looking for. All right.
And yeah, as I was saying before, when you're building your program, you want to definitely tailor it to the kind of group that you are dealing with. For example, the Daisies, the youngest, that badge is going to be a lot shorter, with only about 3 steps for the badge, and there's about 30. You should plan for about 15 minutes per step and 1 hour minimum. But with brownies and higher levels, they'll have about 5 steps for each badge. And so you should plan to have those steps also be longer, with them being like 20 to 30 minutes and about 1.5 hours total. And if you don't have time to complete all the activities, you can assign it as like homework, or you could just have a second meeting with troop leaders if you can do that.
So let's talk about that homework and some of the different considerations then as you're diving into planning this. Sometimes when we've provided sessions with students, we've actually met them at their meeting location. Other times they've come to visit us. So here's a photo from when my daughter was going out to a group at their meeting space at a community park and using one of the picnic shelter areas. We've also had Daisies come into our space. You saw one of the pictures earlier where they're in our shop and touring. There's other things to keep in consideration too. Can you provide resources such as laptops for coding? So there's an equity piece within this also, and your troop leaders that you're working with may know that better and be able to guide you on that too. When we did the full suite with this group of juniors that we worked with just again here, when we worked with them as brownies, the troop leader knew that some of the students didn't have access to tablets or other devices to do the coding at home. So when we talk about doing the coding or programming badge within the suite, we actually, since they meet at one of our local elementary schools, we were able to interface with our technology people at the school and have a Chromebook cart available to use. So all the students could use a Chromebook on the school Wi-Fi to do the coding. And then we just made sure that we were there. Let me think. I think we did at least 2 visits, so 2 meeting times with them at that point. And then what other supplies are provided by you or the troop? When we sell our program, in essence, to troops, as far as coming into week 0, they provide nothing. We have everything ready for them. They don't have to worry about bringing anything except their girls. But that might not work for you, or if you're going to them, you may need to take that in consideration as far as what do they already have. In the example for that photo, their troop leader already had markers and other things for them to use. So we didn't have to bring as much of our own materials, but we still have to bring some. The other thing is if you're doing something like shop tours, or you're doing demos, something as simple as having safety glasses. So we just actually have children's size safety glasses. We just have a box that we bought and keep on hand. So when we have smaller students in the space, we can make sure that they're safe, or for going through the pits. So just some of those considerations that you may need to think about. All right. So let's see where we're at. How about, I'm going to throw up on our screen right now a slide show. We're going to switch to a different slideshow here. And this is actually what Vivian helped present at our week 0. So you can see that we're kind of covering the Girl Scout badge. We put up an agenda. We aren't going really in depth with our slides as far as really detailed here because we're working with students. And we make sure we're hitting all the points. So talking about form and different pieces, where the robots are working, some of the different things that we feel that they can relate to. And then we move into some of the actual activities. So Vivian, do you want to explain what we did for when we got to the how robots work piece?
Yes. What we had our girls do is we gave them different pieces. We gave them like pieces of paper and pencils, and we had them partner off and told them that they had to draw a shape. Well, one of them had to draw and the other one had to like describe a shape. And I think it went pretty well. It went fairly well. A lot of them thought that it was a lot harder than they thought it was going to be, with one person having to describe, and it taught them that you had to like really describe things in detail for code to work, because it kind of mimicked coding and programming in that way where if you mess up one thing, then everything gets derailed.
And with our daisies, when we did a group with daisies last year, because these are younger students, I actually, we did a visual with them instead. And I actually have like paper pieces in here, in a bread bag, and like butter and cheese slices, and then a little piece of paper for meat slices. And what we did with the daisies for this same exercise was I put all the pieces out on the table in front of me, and then they had to tell me how to build a sandwich, which sounds easier than it really is when you think about all the steps about it, right? So there's a lot of different ways that you can be very creative with the badge itself and what's in that program guide that Girl Scouts provides you, and then how you actually translate that into an example for the girls to do. So we talked about algorithms and programming, and then we had to do design. So one important piece on any of the Girl Scout badges is for them to do a paper prototype. And then what's the next step that they do, Vivian?
Yeah, we had them think about a problem in their world, and a lot of them were talking about like doing the dishes or cleaning your room, and they had to prototype a robot that would help them with that problem that they came up with, and they just drew it.
Yep, so they do the drawing, and then we use Lego. We found that's easy to do because we have a large bin of it available that we use for STEM fairs, things like that. If you don't have Lego, other things that we've done, especially during COVID time, is we actually created little packs for the students to pick up and take home, which included things like pipe cleaners, pom-poms, popsicle sticks. You can use cardboard. You don't have to have a lot of material for prototyping. You can create like a list of things that are pretty accessible to students in their homes. We just happen to use Lego because we have it and it's available and it's easy to transport the bin into the room we're using. And then they do have to test it out and they have to explain to somebody else how it works. So that can be, again, those small one-on-one groups, or we can move to them presenting to the whole group. So that's what that looks like as far as how we run our program when we're actually meeting with the girls, and we're timing this off. Like Vivian said, we're giving them 15 minutes. You've got to read the room a little if they get a little skittish and you can tell that they're chatting a lot and they're done, then we might move through things a little faster. But we are moving through all of those badge pieces. Other things that we've done for the younger students, especially for daisies, which they really enjoyed, is for coding. I'll actually do a painter's tape maze on the floor and it's just a very simple maze. And then I'll have like box A, B, and C, or 1, 2, and 3, or shapes for the younger students, like a star and a triangle and a square, something that they recognize easily. And then we'll pair them off with one student being the robot and one being the coder. And it's about a 12 by 12, 15 by 15 square that we map out. And then the students have to send their robot through the maze verbally. And especially when you're working with younger students, so those daisies, the kindergartners, first graders, even those second and third graders, something that's very kinetic for them can be very useful to keep them fully engaged. They really enjoy that. They're moving and there's a lot of joy and pride when they get their robot through. So it's a lot of fun to watch that. Badge 3 is based, so that's one idea of one thing that you can do. Badge 3 is based on visiting an event, providing pit tours, or other opportunities to connect with teams. And that's honestly you can even help and start with badge 3, even if starting to actually do a 1.5 hour programming, or like a 1.5 hour offering of a session seems a little like a larger task than you're ready for. Even just starting at badge 3 can be a good place to start. All right. Vivian, do you want to talk a little bit more about Girl Scout camp and just kind of like how that maybe ties in for some of these students that are attending?
Yeah, well, one of the things was that I recognized a lot of these Girl Scouts, and we actually had them call me my caddy camp name during it to not give away like the secret of my real name. But yeah, I think a lot of them recognized me. I recognized a lot of them. So it definitely was like a connection there because and then for them to see like older girls that are also in STEM, I think that's very important, especially because I think a lot of young girls especially don't really see role models that are also women in STEM fields, so it's very important for them to see that. And I think it's very similar to the way that a lot of the girls at camp look up to the older counselors and caddies, because it's not like there's adults leading them; it's other kids. We are kids that they can relate to and have more of a connection with. So I think that's very important.
And your students that you're working with, your Girl Scout students, are going to be pretty adaptable. They're used to being at camp and working outside, so even if it doesn't, I wouldn't worry about being perfect, because that's kind of how it rolls at camp too.
Yeah.
It starts raining and all of a sudden the plans have changed and things happen. And so that is kind of the cool thing, that these young ladies that are coming in are fairly resilient. So it's like, okay, change of plans. We're going to do this instead. They're going to roll with it. And so that does make it a little easier when you're leading with these young students. I think we've always been lucky that we've had at least one or two students on our team who are Girl Scouts or past Girl Scouts. And so even having some form of Girl Scout experience does help a little bit, because at least there's that understanding of what's involved with the badges. But you don't have to have that. I think more important is maybe having a mentor or other champion on your team that assists with the students to lead events, so you have some consistency year to year as students graduate on and off, and also having the older students or the ones that have done this more work with the newer students on the team, just to kind of pass that historical knowledge along. Having enthusiastic students. We've been fortunate enough on KnightKrawler to have enough female students across all of our different sub-teams that are interested in working with this program. As Vivian said, it's important for these young Girl Scouts to see other women in this role, young women in this role. And so if you can staff your programming with female students, that is definitely a plus. The Girl Scouts are going to still have a blast, but just seeing some different female students doing this helps them envision themselves in that role as they get there. We had a lot of our girls that attend week 0 and do the badges. It's not uncommon to say, well, when I get to our high school, I want to be a KnightKrawler. And that's pretty cool. And so, we're kind of playing that long game. We've been doing this about 6 years. We haven't seen a lot that have come on yet from remembering being in the badge program as a young student yet. But I'm going to be curious to see how much of that carries through over the years as we continue this. The other thing is being well organized with a plan before you have a bunch of Girl Scouts in front of you. I think that's an important thing. We've got the slide deck. We've got the students who, even if they haven't worked with us before, for me, helping lead this, I think it's fair to say, Vivian, you knew I had your back as far as making sure that things were going to be set, and you guys had everything you needed to be successful. So I think, if you can set yourself up, that helps. One other thing that's helpful, so Vivian did talk about that. Right away, I was like, I actually recognize some of these students from when I was also volunteering at camp as recently as a few years ago. We made sure that we used her camp name, because otherwise then you have to hug a tree, and there aren't any trees in the school at the time. Excuse me. It's also helpful to know a couple of the different things, like getting their attention. Yeah, hey, ho ho is the answer that the students always give back, the Girl Scouts give back. So if you can learn a little bit about Girl Scout culture, that does also help and goes a long way to keep their attention and make sure that you're speaking their language a little bit. So that's I think that's all we have as far as prepared. Now we want to open it up. So if anybody has any questions or anything they'd like to see more of.
I have a question about the badge itself. So my daughter was in Girl Scouts very young, and I don't think she continued after middle school. But I suspect, and maybe you can help validate this or verify this, but I suspect this is one of the more unusual Girl Scout badges to get. Is that true, that this is one of the more rare ones that you could have on your sash?
I can answer that one. Yeah,
Yes.
I would say yeah. I don't remember my troop ever doing a robotics badge. And I would say one of the reasons why is it's hard to get in contact with a team that can help you out with that if you are going to do it like through a high school team like this.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I would say it definitely is one of the like ones that is more rare.
And I will tell you that the Girl Scout troop that we just worked with again, like I said, we had worked with them when they were brownies. She was on top of it. She's like, well, we bridged and now we can earn the next one as juniors. Can we come back?
And is there, I honestly, it's been so long since my daughter was that age, but is there any swagger to the fact that you got sort of a rare badge? I mean, is that a thing? Is that a selling point?
I think so. I feel like it's pretty cool, especially if you have like friends in other troops. Because I know my troop is pretty small and it has been pretty small, but I have a lot of friends that are in bigger troops, and especially the bigger troops, it's going to be harder for them to get robotics badges because there are so many of them. So yeah, I would say it definitely is. It is more of like a incentive to do it. Yeah.
Well, and I'll even go one step further. The feedback that we've gotten from some of the troop leaders that we've worked with in the past is they really are interested in the badge. They really like to do it, but they don't necessarily always feel confident that they can, with their background and their knowledge base, teach it and do it justice and hit all the pieces. So, I mean, that is the other piece too. When we talked about it at the very beginning, the number of women in STEM and engineering is disproportionately small compared to what you would expect for the amount of women in the workforce. And so, I mean, like as a troop leader, it can be very daunting. Like there's a mechanical engineering badge suite too. So like if you wanted to look into some of those different things, there's a lot of these different technical STEM-based badge programs that they have that we can offer or maybe expand into and serve as a resource for. I think it was very interesting going into the GSA, into their basically their white paper on STEM and their policies around building STEM badges, that they explicitly call out FIRST Robotics as a resource and a program to partner with. And then they list out several other programs. They talk about SWE. So there's a lot of different resources that Girl Scouts of America recognizes are opportunities to really drive the STEM pathway. So I can actually, if we want here, if there aren't any questions right now, I can actually give you a really, let me go back here. And let's give you a really kind of basic way where you can easily start to interface with your Girl Scout teams or Girl Scout program in your area and your team. So the reason we hold our badge at week 0 and the reason that we invite Girl Scouts to week 0 is, so this is back to that junior badge set that we were working with the students this last week 0. One of the steps as you get older, it's not in the daisy step, and I don't know if it's in the brownie step either, excuse me, but as you get older and further up in your steps or in your program in the older groups, learning about robotics competitions is actually one of the steps in their badge for their one of their robots badges. So it's actually go to a competition, talk to someone who competed, learn about or learn about the competition online. So they'll often give in this case, 3 different options of ways that you can earn that level or that step. So at week 0, this is why we're taking those Girl Scouts through the pits, because we want them to actually come see matches, or we'll often finish the badge about the time that we're hitting lunch, but then they can actually talk to some of the different girls that are on a robotics team. So it's talk to an older girl, a robotics team coach, or a Girl Scout volunteer who's attended or competed in a robotics competition to learn more. So right there, that's something you could even invite in Girl Scouts or go to some sort of Girl Scout programming and just talk about being on a team, having your female students do that. Learning about robotics teams, join or create a robot. So if you're looking at, if you're already doing Lego League, this would be a great way to look at possibly working with troops to do troop-based Lego teams, or talk to someone who's been part of a team, or learn about a robotics team online. So there's different ways that the students will earn this part of this badge. And then seeing robots in action, go on a field trip to see a real robot. Well, that's really easy if you can offer to come and do the visit with your robot to do demos. So even doing robot demos can help Girl Scouts meet this requirement. So there's a couple different ways that you can very easily interface with your robot. Your robot and your team can interface with Girl Scouts.
Michelle, you had mentioned earlier, you were talking about resources and you were talking about laptops. At the intermediate and upper levels for the robotics badge, what type of coding are they talking about here? Because I know that you had mentioned coding a couple of times.
Yep. So let's go back and talk about the coding. Let me get back. So that'll kind of depend on what grade level. So the brownies, they had to do like an hour of code. And so we actually, one of our students created a Scratch game and coding with the students, and then led them through that. That is part of why we have on our wiki page some of those different resources for Code Academy. And then in the younger teams, or in the younger badges, sometimes they'll actually have them they won't actually have them physically coding per se, but they'll, like in the daisies, their coding is, like I said, doing that maze, actually qualified for that. I'm just looking where they put.
I remember I've never done a robotics badge through like a robotics team, but I remember I did some sort of coding badge when I was a cadet, and we did a bunch of Scratch coding, on Scratch. And I think we also did some Code Academy stuff, but that was very brief. But I remember doing a lot of Scratch coding.
Yep, I want to say that I've seen Scratch specifically in the younger ones, and then the Code Academy as you get into the older badges. Some of these don't actually specifically, like in the junior badge, they actually say create your own special code, or they won't specify a specific program to use.
So I know that I've seen the girls coming through for our week 0, and this year I saw them primarily when the University of Minnesota Robot in 3 Days team allowed them to drive the robot over the lunch break.
Yes.
So again, it's been a while. I remember about how big these young ladies were. I'm guessing third, fourth grade, maybe. What tier is that again in the brownies, daisies, juniors, cadets, whatever that is?
So
What
these
is
were
what is that grade level?
so the ones that we had this year were actually they were
It was elementary school, wasn't it?
they were elementary, and these were juniors. So they had just bridged into juniors, so they were fourth graders.
Okay.
So 9,
And
10.
so Vivian, with your experience in Girl Scouts, what is it like doing badges when you get into that middle school and even into high school? Are you still do you have a mandate or a goal of how many badges you need to complete in order to bridge?
Yeah.
And is this a process where as the students, as the girls get older, it becomes harder and harder to engage them? And this might be a place that you can more easily engage an older Girl Scout because it's more interesting? Or do you think there's a gap here that can be filled to solve some of those problems?
Yeah. I know definitely the younger girls tend to do more badges, so you're likely to interact more with like younger girls. There isn't actually like a amount that you have to get, amount of badges, but I know as I've gotten older, my troop has done like less and less to get badges, but the badges that we do like now, especially the ones that we aim for, are ones that kind of interest everyone. Like we recently just did a self-defense class, which was super cool. That was really fun. And so I think for like older Girl Scouts especially, I think this would be of interest. Especially because like going to see a robotics thing. I mean, maybe I'm just biased because like I love robotics, but I think it would be of interest to older girls, but younger girls tend to do more badges and they're more involved. Like I remember when I think when I was a brownie, we had like my Girl Scout troop met like every week, every other week, but now my troop meets maybe once a month, like at most. So I think the younger girls are more like into Girl Scouts, whereas older girls like are still in it, but not as much. And they tend to do badges that are more interesting to everyone rather than like, oh, let's get as many badges as we can.
And I would say that you're probably most of the age levels that we get requests from are daisies, brownies, and juniors. So K through 5. Once they get into 6th grade, there's a lot. I think it's probably safe to say there's a lot more competing interests and a lot more extracurricular activities available for those students. So most of our requests and most of the programming we've done has been for those first 3 levels. So those grade kindergarten through 5th.
I'd like to broaden our topic a little bit. Before I do, though, I want to make sure that we leave space here. Does anyone else on the call have any questions specifically about Girl Scouts or the Girl Scout badge program that Vivian and Michelle have talked about so far? Okay. So I would like to expand a little bit more into, how else has KnightKrawler tried to or worked with girls to engage them with STEM? So I know that we've mentioned in the past that we have our Girls in the Shop Day, or afternoon or evening. It depends on if it's during the school year or during the summer. Vivian, can you share a little bit more about Girls in the Shop and how we use that to engage more girls into STEM?
Yeah, Girls in the Shop was really cool this year. I liked it. But I really like doing Girls in the Shop because I know, like, I love everyone on our team, but I think there are less girls than guys, so it's really cool to be able to be in a community with just girls and just like doing something fun like building birdhouses or doing that sort of thing just with other girls on the team who I have like similar hobbies and interests with. And so I've always found Girls in the Shop really fun. I always try and go. And I think also like even people who aren't really interested in joining robotics or being on KnightKrawler, they are still invited to come and they can still learn about our team and learn about like kind of what we do, and they get to see the shop, get to see what our space looks like, even if they aren't like, or if they're like on the fence about joining robotics, it can be a really cool opportunity to kind of convince them that they should join.
One of the things that I like about Girls in the Shop specifically is that we have finally found a use for all of our leftover scrap, very small pieces of plywood and 2x4 from our week 0 field. So I think that most teams out there are probably building some field elements, and eventually you'll get to a point where you end up cutting up your plywood or cutting up your 2x4s to the point where they're just too small to be reused every year. And we created a birdhouse design that we could make a birdhouse out of plywood and 2x4s. Now I will not say it's the best birdhouse design you could possibly do. You have to paint it, otherwise it's not going to last very long outside. But I like the fact that we're also kind of reusing our scrap or keeping our stuff out of the dumpster, out of the landfill, and putting it to good use. And we're making, they're not very big pieces of plywood and 2x4 in the end. And so you can actually make a lot of birdhouses out of the scrap. I think I volunteered to cut out all of the pieces. And I think last summer I ended up cutting out, I think it was almost 100 birdhouse parts. And now we still have probably 40 of them left. So it's really nice that we can just run this through this kind of factory of cutting out tops and bottoms and sides and in pieces of these birdhouses, and then create these birdhouse kits that we can use for Girls in the Shop, that we could use for Girl Scouts if we wanted to. We even sent a dozen or so kits to the local middle school to be used for their some STEM class that they had. So that has worked out really well for us. And the Girls in the Shop was the kind of the reason why we went down creating these birdhouse kits out of scrap lumber. Again, I don't want to say that, hey, I'm going to go to the hardware store and I'm going to buy materials. How do I build a birdhouse? I would definitely not use our design for that, because it's not exactly the best material to use for a birdhouse. But for a project like this, it works out really well. And I'm glad that we started doing that.
We'd be really interested in learning more about your Girls in the Shop program. It's at Centennial. Certainly, the district has made quite an investment in tooling and machinery, and we'd like to get more of our females on the team and just more women in general exposure to that area.
Vivian, can you share what tools you end up using? Oh, sorry, Stacy, I cut you off.
No, we have one build student now who could probably tear down an engine and put it back together again faster than anybody else. But she's kind of a sample size of one, and we'd like to be able to expand on that.
Vivian, can you share what tools you learned how to? Now, as a programmer, you've not been on the build team, so it may have been your rare exposure to tools. But can you share what tools that you ended up using for our birdhouses?
I remember using a drill because I almost like Aphomia had to show me how to use the drill because I had no clue how to use it, but I learned how to use it eventually. I remember we used the drill. We used what was the thing that we used to cut the hole for the
drill press?
Yeah, that was cool too. I was also scared of that though because I'm a programmer and I never go into the shop because I'm too scared. But yeah, that was cool. What else did we use?
Did you use the chop saw to customize your roof?
I don't think I did.
So we've cut pre-cut roof sections, but we've also given the students a chance to say, hey, I want my roof to be bigger or smaller. And so we've let students cut a custom roof. We found that the first year we tried to do too much with the chop saw, the compound miter saw, and we had a huge backup on the saw. So we've learned through this process with the birdhouses that we have to manage kind of how long you're at a station. And so We've used hammers. Did you use hammers the year that we had hammers, Vivian? Hammers and nails.
I don't remember using a hammer.
So
I just remember using a drill.
the
We did
drill, and
hammers
you were
this
using the impact driver because you were screwing all of your parts
Yeah.
together, right? Yeah. So the tricky part about that is that if you've got 8, 10, 15 students that are trying to build birdhouses, trying to avoid the bottlenecks, the drill press is an obvious bottleneck. The saw is an obvious bottleneck. Usually we can pull together enough drills and enough impacts that we can sort of keep everybody going through that station pretty good. But it can be really tricky to manage a decent sized group of students that are building birdhouses. I'm curious, thank you, Stacy, for bringing that up. And I saw Lisa give us a thumbs up. I'm curious what other teams are doing to help engage their girls and non-binary students from in STEM. If you have any things you're doing specifically to encourage female participation, I'd love to hear what other teams might be doing.
When students first come out, we've tried kind of a couple of, you don't have to pay, come for a couple of meetings and try things out where they go through the rotation of all the different areas from build to programming to CAD to business and marketing, to see kind of where they fit, and then encouraging students, if they start in one area, they can always move to another, and also trying to have the members of the different teams work together through the prototyping of kind of week, after go live, that first couple of weeks, to come up with some designs. And so then you're having students from different backgrounds working together to kind of come up with things. And that's probably someone from CAD, someone from Build, and someone from the business and marketing team, primarily, just to be involved in the early process and understand how things, all the different things that need to be considered before maybe gets to your part if you stay in one of those particular areas.
Anyone else want to share anything they're doing specifically?
I'll not so proudly share that 2530 has historically, at least in my time since COVID, done nothing specific, which is why I'm here tonight listening, and I want to take on some knowledge about how we do that. I think our 2 students who participated in the All Are Welcome program with Yogi are planning something for this summer specifically, and I think we need to definitely take some action. I like the idea of Girls in the Shop. What time of year do you do that?
We usually do Girls in the Shop near the beginning of the year. I think it's a really great way because you don't have to be part of the team. You can just come to build birdhouses or just to learn about the team and see if it's something of interest to you. And so we usually do it like near the beginning of the year. So
School year, you mean? Like your academic year?
Yeah.
September, early September, right when school's starting.
We've also done in the summertime too, and the tricky part there is it really kind of, because it's so hard to kind of reach the students, the tricky part there is to encourage our girls to say, hey, can you bring a friend? Can you bring a couple of friends to Girls in the Shop? And that can be really hit or miss in the summertime. But I think that we have such a great group of girls this year on the team. And it's one of the largest groups of girls that KnightKrawler's ever had. And so I'm really eager to try to keep expanding on that and try to get, especially some of our younger students, our freshmen, our sophomore, who may be able to pull in students that haven't kind of locked into their activity at school yet, to try to lean on those newer students to say, hey, let's do something fun in the summer. Can you bring some of your friends? So I would like to try another summer one this summer, but the September one is a really good time too, because school's just started. You're reconnecting with old friends, and we have had a decently good job of getting students in. We had 1 year where we had like half of the girls' soccer team wanted to come, but they had a meet that day. So thinking about what you're going to conflict with, it can also be sort of tricky when you're trying to schedule the day that you're going to try to do it.
So I'll just kind of piggyback though to the other pieces. We had some students join the team. And so I think you kind of have to look at it as two pieces. One, for us, like planning it, understanding that this may just be teaching. I mean, like, my dad taught me how to use tools, hand tools, the same time he's teaching my brother. I was fortunate to grow up in a family where, you know, we had access to people who were making things and tinkering and had tools. I think that's not as common now necessarily, depending on the family you grow up in. And so I think for us, we didn't necessarily recruit a lot of female students. We had a few who joined the team, but also it's creating an opportunity for learning tools and some just new skill sets, right, for anybody. So I think I want to caution, like, you're not going to get gobs and gobs of new recruits doing girls in the shop necessarily. That hasn't been our experience. I think what has helped is, like Scott said, you know, like, we've got, you know, Vivian, you've got friends on the team, you've got other females on the team. You mentioned before having mentors on the team that are female also has been helpful for that, to see role models. So I think that's the, you know, like, as you're kind of building out your program and looking at those sorts of pieces, how can you plug in? And I don't think it's just one solution. It's not just that we have girls in the shop. It's that we've got a lot of these different things that we're doing that all kind of piggyback and work together. We've got one student who's an 8th grader who's already super excited about joining when she comes into the high school, because she was the older sister with her Girl Scout sibling at week 0. And she got to see the robot and drive the robot too with the U of M Robots in 3 days. And so, you know, you never know where you're going to get students from, but I think having some of those connections helps. And again, back to some of the data, starting earlier may be better to change some of those STEM preconceived notions that girls are coming into high school with. It might be too late doing a girls in the shop. Maybe we're a little better off to start targeting younger. And I think that's been helpful. I don't know, Vivian, if that kind of resonates with you as a student.
I mean, yeah, I feel like even in just this past year, we've got a lot more girls on the team. Like, last year, I was the only girl freshman on our team. And now this year, there are other girls in my grade that joined our team. And so I feel like we've definitely grown, like, not only like just in numbers, but also in like diversity on our team. And I mean, the girls in the shop, it doesn't have to be complicated. Like, I mean, I'm on programming for a reason. So, but I managed to finish a birdhouse. Like, I learned how to do, like, use the drill or the press, the drill press, and all of it was super fun, and I had a good time. So, and if I wasn't on the team, that probably would have convinced me to join the team, even though I definitely wouldn't join Build, but it's okay.
I think that, so speaking from experience, that the reason why I'm part of KnightKrawler is because my daughter joined the team when she was a freshman and stayed with it all 4 years. But I think that having that experience as a girl dad, which is what Michelle calls me all the time, having that experience as a girl dad and paying very close attention to the girls that are on our team and trying to help them through their experiences. One of the things I think Girls in the Shop does, and other things like that, whether even if they're just a social time, is that there's a lot of fear with joining a new program. And unfortunately, I feel like sometimes our female students experience that hesitation more than our male students do. Just coming into the space and being familiar with what this space is and where stuff is at can really be a confidence boost. I think we've seen that with some of our students that have both joined the team, but just that sense of kind of familiarity can really break down one of the biggest barriers. I've tried to recruit lots of young women into our program because I met their parents, or they came to an event, or I saw them someplace and I said, oh, where middle school do you go to? Oh, you go to that middle school, or you're going to go to Irondale. What are you planning to do there? Are you interested in robotics? Like, I don't know anything about robotics, but the idea that you could come in and build a birdhouse, like Vivian said, is I could build a birdhouse. Suddenly things become more achievable and less daunting. And I love the example that Vivian gave about how she was the only freshman and now other girls from her same grade have joined robotics. The idea that you can say, hey, bring a friend, suddenly your friend seems like, oh, this isn't so bad. This is something that I could see myself doing. So I really like the idea of creating opportunities for the girls that are already on the team to try to invite their friends. And maybe they won't join, but maybe they will. And I think that idea of just walking through the door gives that level of confidence to maybe come back. And so I think that's a big step to recruiting. Speaking of recruiting, for KnightKrawler, we had, at one point we created a video where all of our current female students and all of our female mentors and some of our female alumni, we did sort of a little commercial, and we ran that little commercial in a display case that we had, and we posted on social media and things like that of, I'm a KnightKrawler and here's what I do. And whether that was on the team, or now I'm going to college and I'm pursuing a degree in this particular STEM field or that STEM field, or I'm a mentor and I'm an engineer, or I'm a pharmacist, or whatever it might be. I think that's also was a great idea. I don't know that it really followed through on really upping our recruitment, but I love the idea that we did that. I love the idea that we tried that. I'd love to try it again and see what other traction we can get for recruiting more girls into STEM. I'm curious if anyone else has any recruitment strategies that they've tried, or anything particular that's working for them.
We have a proposal to our booster club that was just presented last month to increase the number of FLL teams and take it to the elementary school level to start building out the program in our district. We're evaluating that now, but we do have at least one very robotics friendly principal at one of the 5 or 6 elementary schools in the area to try and start earlier before maybe some preconceived notions are out there to prove that anyone can do this.
And maybe that's something that you look at. A lot of Girl Scout troops are associated with a school also. So maybe that's, if you're really looking to build more opportunities specifically for girls, maybe that's one piece, is that you ask, okay, what are the Girl Scout troops that are associated with your elementary school? Because they're going to be several for the different grade levels. And maybe that's one of the pieces that you target too, if you really are looking to help with some of those preconceived notions that you maybe have, not just the school, but within the school, you look at maybe Girl Scout troops specifically too. So there's a lot of opportunities where you can be very targeted on where you're trying to impact.
That's a great suggestion. I was a former Girl Scout leader as well.
See?
I'm still involved with Scouting America today, which both of my kids went through that program and eagled. So I believe very strongly in youth programs. I think between the different scouting programs and FIRST are some of the best ones out there for youth in the United States today.
There was a recruiting strategy that KnightKrawler had done, and I think, Michelle, this may have been even before your time, but back when my daughter was on the team. And again, our school district changed the start times. So now the middle school starts earlier and gets out sooner than our high school. And it used to be the reverse of that. And so when my daughter was in high school, the high school would get out an hour before the middle school. And a lot of our students would love to go back to their old middle school and talk to their science teachers and talk to the classes and do robot demos. And so 2-3 times a year, I would say, our students would go back to the middle school for the last period of science class or whatever STEM class they could get into, and they would do a robot demo a couple of times a year. And it turned out, and this was mostly organically, but I think it's smart to even try to incentivize this a little bit. But most of the students that went to do these presentations were girls. And so now you saw girls seeing other girls driving robots around. And I think that I know that made a big difference for our team when we had freshmen who were coming in from 8th grade who said, oh, I know all about KnightKrawler because they always came to our 7th and 8th grade science classes and did a robot demo when I was in middle school. Stacy, you made the point of trying to capture those students before they've decided to do something else. And I do agree that that's very important, that a lot of times students by maybe the beginning or middle of their freshman year, they've decided that I'm going to be in drama, or I'm going to be in basketball, or I'm going to be in volleyball, or I'm going to be in whatever the activity may be. And now it's kind of too late because they've picked their thing. A lot of times kids switch, but being first on that list can often be a good thing. And so I'm trying to target it at that middle school level and let girls see other girls doing robot stuff, I think is really important. Unfortunately, when they changed the start times, the reason why I know that it worked is because when we changed our start times, our female enrollment in robotics just tanked. I mean, it completely tanked. And we lost our pipeline that was sort of an accident, slightly intentional, but mostly an accident, where now our middle school girls weren't seeing our high school girls doing robotics, and they weren't just organically coming to join the team. And so we had to start being more intentional about how do we recruit female students, since we've lost this way that they had been joining the team in the past. So if you are part of a school district where your middle school gets out after your high school, that's a great opportunity. And I will tell you all day long that you should try to send your students over to the middle school to introduce robotics to those students. It can be a lot trickier when you have to get approval to leave school early in order to go to the middle school and give a demo, especially since you're probably leaving school 2 periods early because your last period is after they get out. So now you'd have to get out second to last period and last period. That can be tricky. It's also challenging too. Our middle school and high school are not in the same building. They're not within walking distance while carrying a robot either. So all of those things create additional challenges depending on what the physical locale is between your high school and your middle school.
We do also have a pretty strong program in our elementary schools where we go demo also. And I think, Vivian, have you been to any of those? Do you know how long?
To the demos?
Yeah. Look how many we've done. We've done stuff.
One of the ones at the beginning of the year, but I don't remember which one. So
we've done multiple demos. We continue to do multiple demos at our elementary schools. I know that we do tend to have, like, we still do middle school demos, but they're not intentionally in the STEM or science program or science timeframes. They're at some of the different info nights and things like that too. So that's definitely kind of cut back with the change in the schedule. So, but to your point, Stacy, yes, I think if you can starting early is always a good thing. Our problem is that since we don't have that as much of that connection with the middle school right now, that's where you kind of lose them in that middle, in that interim when they find other areas and they don't always have that exposure continuing. So to Scott's point.
All right, we're coming up on time here. We've got a few minutes left in the call. I wanna bring us back to Girl Scouts. That's why we're here to start with. So are there any closing thoughts on Girl Scouts or the way that KnightKrawler has engaged with Girl Scouts or other opportunities people might see with the Girl Scouts? Is there any final thoughts on this that we want to capture before we sign off for the night?
I think this is something. Oh, go right ahead, Amanda. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to say thank you. And then Stacey, I'm sorry for cutting you off. Vivian, you're very articulate in your support for both programs, and I really appreciate that. And thank you for the ideas that then, lots of things with teams just start with a spark of an idea from another team. So thank you for that.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Stacey?
I would echo that you did a wonderful job, Vivian, and good luck with the rest of your scouting career. And this is something I think that we had originally put on our plan with our what we believe now is going to be our annual Centennial Robotics celebration in the fall, but ran out of time to pull it off. But now that we have a little bit more time and seeing some of what you've presented here tonight, I think it's something that we could be working with our local service unit to offer in November. Thank you.
And I think, if I have any big takeaways to offer or words of advice, start where you can, right? We've been doing this since, my daughter is a 2022 grad from Irondale and our robotics program. She was co-captain her senior year. And so, we were fortunate that we had, as Maria started this program and then graduated out, then Amelia took it on, and we've been fortunate to have Girl Scouts through it. So, we're 6 years in now into that I've been working with this, that we've been doing these sorts of demos since COVID. It's not like we just are here doing these, like we've been doing and learning as we go. So pick a spot and start, even if that's doing robot demos intentionally to meet those requirements for badge 3. Do the research and find out what badge requirements you're meeting. Sell that service in a sense to the Girl Scout troops around you that, hey, we can help you complete this if you're interested. And then start from there and go from there. Pick a spot and go. You don't have to do everything all at once. Was it last year, I think, was the first year that we've offered all 3 badges for 2 different troops, and they've completed the whole series of badges. So that's, so it's taken that long for us to kind of work up, build those relationships and do it. So don't, pick a spot and start. And then I'm going to tease a little bit for Rise, because KnightKrawler will be co-hosting that with Fire Bears again in October. We're already talking about how can we integrate Girl Scouts and invite Girl Scouts to this. And it may be just that we're offering this for badge 3. But we're already starting to talk about ways that we can start to do that and start to incorporate and partner more. And maybe that's a way where we start to create a venue too for further cooperation and connections, across the metro too. So be looking for that. Start building your drive team. Start doing drivers training more and more. Look at different ways where we can start to do more to represent opportunities for young girls coming up through our school systems. So.
And I have a takeaway too. So I will work on putting together our cut plans for the scrap birdhouses out of our week 0 leftovers. So I will work on getting that on the wiki. So we'll keep an eye out the next few weeks for a Girls in the Shop wiki update post that'll include plans for how we do the birdhouse. And I was just sitting here thinking about how am I going to spread the word on that. If you're going to North Star, I will try to hang a birdhouse on our pit structure with a QR code that'll link to our birdhouse plans. I think that'll be an eye-catching way. And hopefully if you're walking past at North Star, you'll be like, oh yeah, Scott said birdhouse plans. So look for that. Hopefully I actually get that done. I have now committed myself on the podcast that I will put out the birdhouse plans on the wiki. So that'll be my goal for the next month, before, or 3 weeks, whatever it might be before North Star, and I will get that out there.
And we're always happy to work with other teams too that are interested in starting programs or have any questions. We have Girl Scouts available to help.
Yeah, I think our Girl Scout program is really important, and it's really beneficial for girls to see role models like that. But also, if you are really like passionate about trying to get girls on the team, I would really recommend doing a girls in the shop or something similar, because I think it's really beneficial. And like, yeah, starting young and like doing Girl Scouts is important, but also like a student like me, I'm in like a million extracurriculars.
Yeah.
Like, and I think robotics, you can target someone of any age and they'll still want to do robotics, because I mean, again, I'm in so many different extracurriculars and I still love robotics and I still want to keep with it.
I think
So
that's
I would definitely recommend a girls in the shop.
I think connections, right, Vivian? Just keeping connected
Yeah.
and knowing that there's space.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think that is a great place to end. We're just about right at time anyway. So I want to thank Vivian and Michelle for putting this together tonight. Thank you. Applause, all the applause emojis that are scrolling across the screen. Thank you so much for doing this. And we will look forward to seeing everyone next week. I should have looked this up. This happens all the time. I do not know if we have a topic for next week or what our topic will be. So we'll stay tuned for whatever it's going to be next week. I do know that we have Nicole Shoshaw has a talk scheduled. I think it's about champs maybe coming up, but I do not remember if that's next week or the week after. So stay tuned. Watch your emails. If you are on the mailing list, I will send out an update for what our topic will be. And if you're not on the mailing list, consider signing up. Go to team2052.com/roundtable and you can sign up for the weekly mailing. That'll remind everybody of the upcoming topic and the roundtable. So with that, thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time tonight. Thanks for all the great questions, and we will see you next week. Good night.
Night.
That's it for this week's FRC Roundtable. Join us live all season long, every Sunday night. Visit the website at team2052.com/roundtable to sign up for weekly invites. In the meantime, keep building, keep learning, and we'll see you next week.